I've been given the topic on practical approach to SLD, specific learning disability, stressing on dyslexia. So it's actually very encouraging to see a lot of teachers this time, because normally the attendance, used to be a little lesser in the earlier workshops that has been conducted either in schools or other areas. But it's encouraging to see that a lot of people are actually getting very interested and aware and willing to learn. So I think it's a hopeful and positive sign for our state. So so the topic that I'll be talking about will be primarily focusing on dyslexia, and I'm sure that most of you being teachers are aware of, have come across the term dyslexia. Even though you might have not gone into detailed study into and understood what, dyslexia is or all the other segments of it, but I'm sure that once you've heard the word dyslexia, you immediately know that there is a problem. Right? You're aware that there is something, a problem with a child, some problem in the brain, in the cognitive aspect of the brain. So I'm sure that you're also aware and you know. But sadly, because our state, we have not yet come to a point where we are easily able to access help and intervention for these kind of children. So coming back to understanding what exactly dyslexia is, it comes under an umbrella term, SLD. SLD is specific learning disability, which covers 4 different types of disabilities. Now we have dyslexia, we have dyspraxia, we have dysgraphia, and we have dyscalculia. So these are the 4 things that covers the SLD. Of the most common and about 80% of the SLDs, specific learning disabilities registered and studied so far, about 80% of it is the ones with dyslexia. So dyslexia is the most common type of difficulty that is seen in even throughout the world. So globally, the ratio of children suffering from dyslexia is much higher than all the other 3 different kind of disabilities. So when you talk about dyslexia, it is a group of specific lifelong cognitive impairment. Now you have to understand that it's a lifelong impairment because it's a cognitive impairment and which cannot be corrected. So it is identified through unexpected underachievements, because only once a child goes to school and then consistently starts failing in class or not able to catch up with curriculum, that's when you start noticing. So it is through the unexpected underachievement in a range of learning processes involving language, involving spellings, writing, written expressions, and decoding and comprehension. So as teachers, I'm sure you're aware that, once you see children who have difficulty in spellings and writing and then comprehension, then you start figuring out that, okay, I think there's something not normal about this child. There's something that he's struggling with. Very recently have teachers and have people, educators around have, I'm just talking about Nagaland, we have come to a point of realizing that, okay, there is a problem with it, because, it's not been too long ago where we try and dismiss, saying that, he's just lazy. Oh, I think he's just trying to get away with work. I see that his brother is very intelligent. I see that his sister is very intelligent, but this guy, he's just not going to do it, So earlier it used to be, we are trying to console ourselves because we are not aware, and we would just say he's lazy, he's stupid, he's slow, he tries to get away with work and all that thing to cover up what we did not know. But now, with the understanding of what dyslexia is and what SLDs are, it has allowed us to, look for intervention and also help teachers find materials to assist children who are slower. Now, so dyslexia is is it affects the brain in the written aspect and making it very difficult. So, primarily the problem that they have is with the written area. Now, because of that, the fonts that they see, how they, when you open up a book and we read, reading comes to us naturally. I think most of us have just, gone to school and then you open up a book and then, okay, your teacher teaches you A, apple, B, ball, and, we've been able to catch up with it just naturally, not struggling too much. But many children with dyslexia have difficulty in just learning naturally. So what we think comes naturally to them will not come naturally. Okay, so, and that's when we start saying that, he's just lazy, because it came naturally to me, and you think that that should happen to the other child. It does not happen like that, because we cannot look inside the brain. Dyslexic brain is more different than a normal brain, because now with the psychiatrists and all the other people who study the brain, they say that dyslexic brain are normally thicker and bigger on the left hemisphere, and the right hemisphere is smaller. So for a normal brain to work and understand and effectively work, both the hemisphere of the brain has to be equal. Otherwise, there is a dependency on only one side of the brain. And that's where the problem happens. But aside from reading and writing, the SLDs can also have issues which may not be just academic. They will also have problems in time management, organization, and social skills, social interactions. So even with peer relationship or handling stress and all these things, you will see that they have a problem with that. You will see that children are easily irritable, they're not trying to reason, they're hypersensitive. So all these things. So, at the end of the day, we don't see a child with just dyslexia. We see a child with behavioral problems. Because then, the way we look at a child the focus becomes only the problems. So as teachers, I'm sure that we've also had that share of experience where you look at a child and you just see problems, right? Because I've also been teaching since 2007, working with children with special needs. So initially, before I was also introduced to special education, we would look at a child and just see, he's a problematic child. He's this, child with he's just too difficult to handle. I just wish he's not in my class. All those things. I'm sure we teachers have also experienced that, because our focus has just been the problem, But when we take the problem and the child aside, and our focus can be only the child, then you can get a long way. You can get to understand the child. Now, it's important for teachers to also understand that dyslexia, or for that matter, any other SLDs, they have difference in their severity. So it can be mild, moderate to very severe. But most people with difficulties, now when I'm talking about difficulties, it will cover all other difficulties, like, for example, cerebral palsy, autism, ADHD, Down syndrome. All of that will also come with dyslexia. So dyslexia, that's why it's very common, because any child with a learning problem, any child with cognitive impairment will come with dyslexia. Okay, so that's why it is very common. So so dyslexia is one of the highly comorbid disabilities that you will find among all other disabilities. Okay, now how a dyslexic child sees is very different from how we see. The visual perception, the visual perception that they give the brain and what the brain gives out and sends out is very, very different. So since it's a cognitive impairment and it's a lifelong impairment, you will definitely see that what they see and what they reproduce is very, very different. Now, memorization is difficult, rote memory difficult. So even if you say memorize, it's not going to work. Vocabulary, sometimes you will see that a child might be speaking correct English, verbally very good, can narrate stories. But when it comes to writing, they cannot write grammatically correct sentences, okay? Spellings is a problem. You will see a lot of letter reversal substitution. So, for example, when you give a thing to a child to read, if they see the word cat, they may see tack, or or cap. So substituting words, that's very, very common. Sequencing problem. Now, narrating longer stories. So if you tell the child to narrate a story and then you are telling them, can you say it in a sequence? Or even if you give them a passage to read, whether it's just sequencing of 3 to 4 sentences, it's still difficult for them, because for them to getting the main idea of a topic is very, very difficult, because the brain cannot tell them which one is important. When we read a passage, a comprehension passage, you get the idea, oh, okay, so this story talks about this one. But it's very difficult for a dyslexic brain to figure out what is the main idea, what are the key points, what are sight words, what are the multi-syllable words. So there are too many things that is happening in a dyslexic brain. So it's very, very difficult. Now, so when we are talking about all these kind of problems, you also have to understand, as teachers, this is very important, because even if we are not psychologists, even if we are not counselors, it's important for you, when you figure that a student is very aloof, he has something, there's something going on, when you immediately, because as teachers, many parents who are not educated might not be able to see it, but as teachers, once they enter school, it's in our hands. So sometimes we are the first to diagnose and to understand that the child has a problem. Now, the next thing that for a teacher, what is important for you to know is learn the background of the child. Because if you're close to the family, or if you know the members of the family, you can do a quick background check, do a quick history check, and then see, because many children with dyslexia also happen because of birth traumas. So if they've had birth traumas, or if they've had, it can also be genetic. So sometimes it's hereditary, it passes on from a parent, or some members of the family to another child. That's also possible. Environmental factors have also, after I came back from Delhi, I also realized initially environmental factors were not covered too much when we talk about disabilities.